and I've knit a couple pair of crappy.
Oh no. Oh no. Wait a second.
I can tell that he's like, oh, I noticed my wife's feeling a little bit better today. Better put on my cologne.
So I'm on my way to my best friend, Christian.
Because it's a vlog. Oh, we're recording.
You guys, I've picked up my granny stripe crochet blanket again.
Good morning and welcome to a homespun house. My name is Molly and I'm the owner of a homespun house. I create all of the yarn, all of the fun things behind our yarn company. So we have just moved yet again. I know that in the last 15 years, I think I have moved at least every 1 to 2 years. So I think I've moved 8 times plus in the last 15 years. So that's crazy. The home that we're in now, however, I really, really hope to be a place that we're staying for quite some time. It feels like that anyway. I feel like all of the different places that we've lived have always felt quite temporary. And this here is a place, other than the home that we lived in when we lived in America, we really, really enjoyed that space and the garden and the just room outside. That was really something special. And it's funny because we have a Patreon channel, a Homespun House. We have vlogs up pretty much every other day, and we've been doing a little bit of vlogging of our new home. And a lot of you who are our patrons have mentioned that this home that we're currently in reminds you of our American home. Now, being in this space myself, it definitely is completely different. However, I can understand. We do have a huge winter garden here, which is absolutely beautiful. And we had one of those when we lived in America. It was a bit smaller, but also very, very cozy, and a room that I spent a lot of my time in. And I definitely will be spending quite a bit of time in that room in the future, that's for sure. It reminds me a lot of my Grandma Sue. Each time I sit in that room, I think, this is a room that my grandma, who is still alive, sometimes when I speak about her, I've been speaking about her for years throughout my podcast, people wonder how she's doing. So I think about her a lot when I'm in that room. I know she would love looking out at all of the trees, all of the birds, all of the nature. And I really enjoy that. So we've moved into our new home. We've been here for 2 weeks now, and we've been really quickly getting settled in. It's been a week now that I've had my studio in working order. I say it like that because there still is a lot to be done. I still have a lot of things to do in the dye studio. I have a lot of unpacking to do of just products for the shop. It still always takes a while to get reacclimated in the studio space. And that is something that owning a business has been a little bit difficult, is packing and unpacking the work and studio space every 1 to 2 years. It's just crazy, especially because the business obviously grows each year. And so you always have more things business-wise to move. It's very exciting. This is my favorite space that I've been in. And I feel so, so grateful to have found this space. It's absolutely wonderful. So I have been doing quite a bit of knitting these past few months, I think. I'm not even sure when the last time is that I filmed a podcast, but I have been having wrist issues since May, June of this year. I've been to an orthopedic doctor, and they were quite sure that I had tendinitis. So the interesting thing is it's from my pinky up to my arm. My thumb is not affected at all. It is literally the pinky. And so knitting, I haven't been able to do much at all. June, July, and the beginning of August. So the time before June, I did quite a lot of knitting. And the time since then, I have done some knitting. And you will see I enjoyed knitting socks this spring, summer, because I have quite a hefty little stack of socks that I have really, really enjoyed. So I don't even know where to begin. Let me just share with you, I think, the oldest pair of socks that I finished, which is this pair. This is a DK weight pair of socks, and I knit this using our Essence sock set, which is one that we carry in the shop. Robert's just arriving home and Polly hears him, so I apologize if you can hear that barking. Let me take a sip of coffee. She's too afraid. Polly is our Chihuahua, and she's too afraid to climb down the stairs into the studio. We have our home on the first floor, and the second floor is filled with studio spaces. And she's too scared to come down the stairs, so she ends up sitting upstairs alone. I have to figure out how to remedy that. I'm thinking I might need to buy like a children's gate for the stairs and gate her down here when we're here during the day so that she can spend time with us. Anyway, total tangent. But this is our Essence sock set. We do have this available in the shop on our Soft Sock DK. And then we have it available on our Plump Merino, which is a fingering weight yarn. So you can decide if you'd like to knit it up in DK weight or fingering weight. And this is how they work up. Obviously, depending upon your gauge, your yarn might pool differently. I love the way that this pooled. It did a bit of a striping effect here, and it had a larger striping effect here. So I used Essence for the cuff, and then I used a skein of barley and Purple People Eater, only because I was using scraps. Now, when you have your sock set, you will get Essence and barley together. Purple People Eater is not included, and you will have enough. I was just using leftover scraps from previous projects, and so I didn't have enough of each of the yarns. But fret not, you will have enough for a cuff and a toe. So that is that pair, and I think that's the only current pair of DK weight socks that I have on my needles. The next thing that I knit up is also a sock set that we have available in the shop. I knit this out of our Mer de Gnomes colorway. This is what our Plump Merino looks like. It's quite a sturdy sock. It's also very soft at the same time. So I used lingonberry for the cuff. This is such a pretty, deep, rich, wine-colored red, I would say. Rusty at the same times. And then I used Mer de Gnomes, which has such fun speckling. I've been really, really loving orange and peachy tones lately. And this color just is so beautiful. So all of these socks are plain stockinette socks. If you know me, I really, really enjoy a plain, mindless pair of socks to knit and keep my fingers moving and consistently and constantly be creating something. So there is that pair. We're just going to have a little bit of a sock show and tell this morning. The next pair of socks that I knit is one that we do not have a sock set in the shop. I mentioned earlier our Patreon channel that we have, where there are different tiers of subscriptions that you can have. And two of those tiers, you get yarn. So one of the tiers, you get 3 mini skeins. They'll always be different each month. And then a higher tier, you get 3 mini skeins and then at least 70 grams of yarn. And I often like to do a 50 gram plus 20 gram skein sock set for that tier. It's just fun. And I love the yarn that I create for that tier because it's something that I know I will not write down. It's something that I know I can do techniques that maybe are very time intense, and I really, really enjoy that aspect with it. So I think almost every Patreon yarn that I've dyed, I have knit into a pair of socks. So here we have Refresh as the cuff. I knit this on gold stellina. And then we have this beautiful colorway that I created. You can see the stellina just glowing in this skein. I love it so much. And then I did refresh again for the toes. Such a sweet combination. This is one of my favorite pair of socks that I've knit in quite some time. Refresh is such a soft and gentle color, and the gold stellina just makes it extra fun to knit. You guys might be hearing some birds in the background, and that is because I have my doors wide open down here. In this studio space, unlike the space that we had when we were living in America, I have windows everywhere in every room, and it is such an inviting and happy feeling being down here, seeing all of the nature, hearing all of the birds, and being able to look out my window and see sunlight and just outsideness. Robert's currently in my dye studio. You might hear him now. He has been washing, rinsing, cleaning all of my pans, yarn. Once it has been finished dyeing, because of my wrist, I cannot lift the heavy pans that my yarn is in. So the next pair of socks that I knit is a scrappy pair of socks. I knit these completely inspired by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. She definitely had a phase where she was knitting lots and lots of scrappy socks. Scrappy Sunday was happening. And I just was so inspired when she was talking about weaving in all of her ends. She enjoys it. It's part of the process. It doesn't bother her at all. And I think that's a common feeling that we have when you're knitting something that has a lot of different color work, that has many different colors or stripes where you have to snip in between and you have to weave in the ends. But why? Why do we need to feel that way? I tried to take on Kay's attitude and knit these socks, snip the ends, with the thought that I'm just going to put them inside out, weave in all of the ends, and enjoy weaving them in, knowing that they're absolutely beautiful. So I dye a lot of 10-gram sets of 10 minis. So you get 10 minis in a set, each are 10 grams, a total of 100 grams of yarn in fingering weight yarn. And this is also a complete palette cleanser. It's something that I do when I'm just feeling extremely inspired and I'm wanting to create a lot of color, sometimes not even a lot of color. Sometimes I have quite subdued neutral sets, and then I might throw a lot of really fun speckles on those. So I decided to grab one of these and make them into a pair of socks. This is sold out. I don't do a lot of each set. I dye a collection of them, I pop them in the shop, and then when they're gone, they're gone. I write no recipe down, something that would be impossible for me to recreate. So again, we have a peachy, orangey, pretty fun set. And I knit these on, I believe, 2.5 millimeter needles. I did a 56 stitch count. Heel, flap, and gusset. I haven't mentioned that, but that's definitely a heel that I use all of the time now. It's my favorite. I love the way that it looks. And I enjoyed knitting these socks. Scrappy, stripy socks go so quickly. I don't know what sort of magic it is. I think it's just the excitement and fun of grabbing a new mini skein. And I've been rolling all of my yarn by hand. I've been winding it by hand, not rolling, into balls. And I don't know, it's something that I have been enjoying so much. Look at this skein. It's another one of our Patreon yarns. I'll share that with you in just a minute. But loved these. I can't recommend it enough. If you guys are looking for something fun, scrappy, that you cannot stop knitting on, grab one of our 10 skein 10-gram mini sets. They are such a joy to knit. You are not going to want to stop. Okay, I've warned you. So the next pair of socks, yes, there are more, that I have knit are this pair. This was also a Patreon set. We do have sock sets for these in the shop, not using this exact yarn, but it's something very, very, very similar. So that's our Utopia sock set. And I've combined this with our chamomile colorway, which is one of my favorite yellows that we offer. And this is also knit up on our gold stellina. So here we have this pair of socks. I knit these on 2.25 millimeter needle. I think this might have been the first time that I used that size of needle. Thoroughly enjoy it. I now knit many of my socks using a 2.25 millimeter needle. Okay, so this next pair of socks that I knit is also a Patreon sock set, and I knit this using our Bohemian colorway, which is right here, and then our Harvest. So pretty. And this was a 50-gram sock set, so you can get quite a good pair of socks out of this. This is a size European 40 and American 9, women's. So I like to do a 1x1 rib. This was also a 2.25 millimeter needle, and I did 60 stitches for this one. But these are so autumnal and beautiful. Thoroughly enjoyed knitting those. I do not have a sock set for this in the shop. So those are all of the socks that I have finished. I do have 2 pair on my needles right now. Let me just grab those for you. So for those of you who are Patreons and have not yet received your August's sock set, look away if you'd like, or pause and come back here. Okay, so this is August's Patreon yarn. I wanted to dye something that was extremely Halloween-ish, because when you sign up for Patreon, if you're a member in August, you don't get your yarn until the next month, the following month, when the month is finished that you've paid for. So August Patreons will be getting this yarn now. So this is something quite Halloween themed, because I knew they'd be getting it in September. I knew that it would be really fun to start knitting a pair of Halloween socks, because Halloween is in October and it would be fun to wear the socks in October, or even hold off on the yarn and knit on it in October. Coffee now? So I did a really fun speckled contrasting cuff. I wanted to do something with a high contrast to the main color yarn. So I dyed up a 20-gram skein of this color. And then I dyed up a 50-gram skein of this one. I think this is one of my favorite Halloween colors I've ever dyed, which is quite a pity because, as I said, it's not in the shop. It's not something I'm offering in the shop. But I absolutely adore this. Adore. And so I've knit the cuff, as I said, a 1x1 rib. I'm doing 2.25 millimeter needles again, a 60 stitch count. And we just have a teeny tiny little tidbit of knitting to show you how that's looking. Isn't that glorious? Cast these on yesterday evening, and I can't wait to see how one sock looks. I cannot wait to see this finished with the cuff and then the toe in this lighter contrasting color. That's not something that I do too often. I don't know, when I was dyeing this yarn, I just thought, you know what? We are going to go for it. We're going to do something different. I want to see how this looks. So that is that pair of socks. The next pair of socks that I'm knitting is a pair of newborn baby socks. So I'm knitting this using our Susie Dale pattern. This is a child's pattern. I have it available on Ravelry. It's for a pair of socks. Now you don't see anything on these socks. I've cast both of them on. This is using our Nurture colorway. So I have 2 little cuffs, and then I have the full skein of yarn. This is our plump merino base. Robert's best friend, Christian, is having a baby, he and his wife, Larissa, and they are naming her Emma. And so I thought it would be really fun to do some color work around the cuff with her name. She has a short name. think it would be something really fun to be able to hold on to with her name on her little socks. And so I'm just trying to decide what color I use for her name. I would really like to use something that is a very deep olive green tone. Now, I don't have something like that in the shop, so I'm thinking that I might need to come up with a new colorway because Larissa and Christian, they love this kind of heathered pink color, and they also adore olive green tones. Olive green tones, beige. I could do white. I don't think it would be stark enough of a contrast. So that is that. And then I have knit for them for baby Emma, my favorite baby hat for newborns. I knit this for both of my girls when they were little babies. It has this little flap here. And I just need to put a little button on here. And then I'll weave that in with this extra long end that I've left. So this hat is the Aviatrix hat, by the way. It fits so nicely. Just cups to the little baby's head. It keeps their forehead warm all the way to the back of their head. It's just really, really sweet. So I enjoyed knitting that. I think that maybe used 20 grams of yarn or something. Not much at all. So they'll have a fun little set. And then the other thing that I'm knitting on is something really exciting. The last 2 years I have done a mystery Advent knit along, and that has been something really special. Since moving to Germany, I have realized a completely different culture of Advent. It's something I feel, at least from the people that I know, is taken very seriously. It's something that is celebrated among, I would say, almost, if not every family that I know. It's not something that I celebrated growing up. I mean, maybe you go to church for Advent, but the German Advent, it was different than my American upbringing. Each Sunday you have a candle that you light. Advent days are very surrounded around family and friends, and you generally are doing something with family and friends and celebrating Advent. You may have a nice meal together, go to a Christmas market in the evening, spend the day making Christmas cookies, just doing something very special in the weeks leading up to Christmas, each Sunday of Advent. It's just, I honestly don't even know exactly how to describe it, but it's very, very different feeling the way that the time leading up to Christmas is treated, and especially those Advent Sundays. And so Advent has become something really special to me. I've always loved Christmas. It's been my favorite time of the year since I've been a child. But now as I've grown into an adult and I've moved to Germany, I've lived here for almost 15 years now. I really have come to enjoy the entire Advent time leading up to Christmas. It's just been something that I enjoy so much. And so I created this Advent knit along where each Sunday of Advent you have that tradition of opening a new skein of yarn, and then you can knit along in a pattern that I've created if you would like. It's not something that you have to do. You can still purchase the Mystery Advent kit and do whatever you want with it. This year there is a 50-gram mini to open up each Sunday of Advent. You could use that, as I just showed you, for a pair of socks. You could use it in a shawl of your own choosing. You could use it in a blanket of your choosing. There are so many different ways that you can use a 50-gram skein of yarn. It's something fun to open up each week. They're all one of a kind, just like those Patreon yarns that I showed you. And this year, because I've had so many problems with my wrist and with the tendonitis, I was not able to design a new shawl for 2021's Mystery Advent if you choose to knit the pattern that goes along with this yarn. So I decided to knit this year together the 2019 Mystery Advent knit along. The pattern is available in Ravelry if you would like. And you have your choice of 4 50-gram skeins of yarn to open each Sunday, as I said, or you can choose 4 50-gram skeins of yarn along with 2 skeins of mohair. So the skein of mohair you will open with your 50-gram skein the first and then the third week of Advent. I am so excited to be knitting on this shawl again. I'm actually currently knitting on it. So if you haven't knit it yet, you don't have to look. If you're curious how it looks, you can take a peek. So this is not the yarn at all that's going to be in this kit. I won't be using tonals for this kit, so that's something to keep in mind. It's something that is going to be speckled. So I've knit this pattern a few times, and this time I knit it. I'm using mohair, which I will be doing for the knit along in December. And I decided that I was going to knit this shawl into a blanket. So that means I knit the shawl, and then I knit the shawl as it's written, but backwards, and instead of increasing, I'm decreasing. So there is not a pattern for the blanket currently, but it is so much fun. And it's going to be quite large. So let me just share this with you guys. I knit this shawl using entirely our Refresh Sheets colorway on our non-superwash fingering weight yarn. And then I paired it with different skeins of mohair. So here I paired Fresh Sheets with Fresh Sheets mohair. Fresh Sheets is a creamy color, as you can see. Then I paired it with a really, really light version of our Refresh colorway. Refresh is that really pastel green toned color that I shared with you earlier. And then here I paired it with Scandinavia. Then I paired it with Oatmeal. So I can kind of try to give you an idea of how this shawl looks. Very, very pretty, very warm, very cozy. And this is now, it's turned into a blanket. So the shawl is not going to be this insanely massive, but there's a lot of garter stitch. There's no brioche. I've had a lot of people asking that. It's just a really fun, relaxing knit that's definitely manageable throughout the holidays because it's a shawl with 50 grams to knit each week. And it's just so much fun. I always have so much fun knitting on this with everyone come December and Advent time. It's just a really enjoyable thing to do together. So that is that. Those kits are currently in the shop right now. The next thing that I really want to cast on is a new pullover. So first, let me just show you guys the pullover that I'm wearing right now. This is the Petite Knits No Frills pullover. I have knit 3 of these now. I knit this using our Hearth colorway in both non-superwash merino, fingering, and then our silky mohair. So I paired the 2 of those together. When you are purchasing a mohair along with a superwash merino, or even the non-superwash merino, it's a very different look. Mohair has silk in it, and so it just creates a really glowy, kind of more subdued color of your superwash non-mohair, non-silk blend. So keep that in mind. If you ever purchase the same color on different bases, it will look differently. But that's the amazing thing about mohair. It really creates quite a glowy, just beautiful look. I love this sweater so much. So Chelsea and I have been very unofficially working on a Christmas holiday sweater knit along. And I haven't cast mine on at all. I've had the yarn dyed since spring, I think. And I've been thinking about it because I love this pullover so much. I wear it all the time. It's probably my favorite fit of any pullover that I have. I love the size that I knit. I love the gauge that it's in. I love the arm length that I did. I did a 3/4 arm length. And so I'm thinking that I want my Christmas sweater to be this pattern. I think I'm going to knit this pattern and I'm going to do it stripy because I've been thinking about the Andrea Mowry stripes pattern for this knit along. It's a knit along that we're doing mostly with our Patreons. And I don't know, Andrea Mowry always has such teeny tiny sleeves in her patterns. I think they're all beautiful, but I definitely like more of a larger sleeve. Now I know that's very easy to modify, but I know I love this sweater. I know I love the fit. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. I have 4 colorways currently dyed on our non-superwash yarn, fingering again. So let me share these with you. I have Scandinavia, Copper Kiss, Fern, and then I have Oatmeal. I am wondering if I need to add one more color to this, but I haven't decided yet. I really love the combination. I think it's Christmassy and holiday themed without being overly. Just beautiful. So I think that will be the next thing that I skein up yarn for. I've really been wanting to knit on pullover, and I think another no frills would be perfect. However, I haven't thought about putting mohair with it. I don't even know what color of mohair I would use. Do I dye up a skein of each of these colorways? I think that probably would be the best because I really want the colors to speak for themselves. I don't know. I haven't gone that far. I also think it might be really fun to have it without mohair, but I do love the mohair, so I think I take that back and need to knit it with mohair. So I don't have too many things. Oh, I have one more thing on my needles, you guys. Let me grab that quick. Can you guys guess what it is? Can you just guess? It is another pair of socks. So I'm knitting this pair of socks out of our White Noise colorway. And then I'm using Lincoln for the cuff. This is our plump merino base. 2.5 millimeter needles I'm using, and I have a 64 stitch count. I'm knitting these for my dad. And we do have kits for this in the shop. I hope you guys love those as much as I do. All right. I am so happy to be back to knitting. I cannot even tell you. It was rough. It was rough. It was rough not being able to move my wrist a lot. I wasn't really able to do anything. I had to have Robert pick up everything for me, move things around for me. Everything. This is my dominant hand, my left hand, and I'm happy to be using it again. As I said, I am so grateful to be knitting, to be able to work easier, to be able to chat with you guys again, and I hope to be seeing you sooner rather than later. I hope that you guys all have a great, great week ahead, and hopefully I see you soon.